Welcome to Solarize 2020. We're going to do a intermediate level yoga practice. So I just would like you to come to a comfortable seat on your yoga mat or on a floor. So you can sit in a posture that's comfortable for you. This cross-legged posture may not be accessible at this point. Also an option just to sit on your heels, and you can place a blanket or a block underneath and just having a seat, whichever is comfortable for you. Sitting nice and tall. We're going to do about a 50-minute practice here, intermediate level of yoga, and focus on the breath. In yoga, the main breath that we'll use is called UIG breath, or breathing in and out through the nose while having a constriction in the back of the throat. So we'll begin our practice in a child's pose. So coming onto your mats, taking your knees wide, toes touch, and letting your hips sink back towards your heels. And again, you can have a blanket or a block, bringing that to the back part where the hips are sinking towards the heels. Bringing your head towards the mat. Again, option to place your fists on top of each other and just bring your head on top of your fist. Or if you have blocks handy, you can place the block underneath your head. Or you can take yourself all the way down to the mat, letting your forehead come towards the mat, letting your hips sink towards your heels, and reaching your arms forward, perhaps your elbows lift up off the mat. And this is called child's pose. It's where we'll begin our practice. So option to just relax your elbows down, paying attention to your body, making sure that you listen to your body. Your body is your greatest teacher. Should never be any pain or discomfort in any of these yoga poses. Just start to breathe, breathing in and out through the nose. With that slight constriction in the back of the throat so that you can hear your own breath. We'll take a few more breaths here. Feeling the stretch from fingertips all the way through the shoulders down into the low back. We'll take two more breaths. Inhale and exhale. And on your next inhale, coming up to all fours. Bringing your knees right underneath your hips, your hands right underneath your shoulders. Inhale, we're going to reach that right hand forward and step the left foot back, pressing the toes into the mat. Feel that stretch in the left calf. And then option to lift that heel up off the mat and reaching forward and back. Taking a few breaths here. And then bringing the right hand down, the left knee down. We'll switch it out, reaching the left hand forward as you take that right foot back, pressing the right toes into the mat. Feel that stretch in the right calf, and then lifting the right heel, pressing through the right heel and the left fingertips. Feel that stretch across the back, from left fingertip to right heel. And breathing. And then bringing the left hand down, right knee down. We're going to tuck our toes under and lift our hips, coming up into an upside down V, into a downward facing dog. So relaxing through the shoulders, pressing all 10 fingers into the mat. Your gaze is between your feet. Let's lift our heels up nice and high. Bend our knees, hovering them towards the mat, and then straightening our legs. And then loosening up our dog by bending one knee and then the other. In down dog, your heels will probably be off the mat. Just taking a few breaths here as we walk out our dog. Then coming to stillness in your down dog. And then walking your feet to your hands, coming into a forward fold. Reaching your hands towards the mat, letting your head relax. Slight bend in the knees, belly touching the thighs. Grab opposite elbow. But then a very gentle swaying from side to side. Coming to stillness, releasing your hands towards the mat. On your next inhale, a very slow rising up vertebrae by vertebrae. As you reach your hands up overhead, and then bringing your hands to heart center. Closing your eyes or gazing at your fingertips and setting an intention for your practice. Perhaps sending love to a loved one, sending peace out into the world, or sending healing energy into yourself. Then opening your eyes, bringing your hands down by your side, palms facing forward, stacking all the joints so the knees are over the ankles, the hips are over the knees, or open through the shoulders, palms facing forward, our head is stacked over the pelvis, everything lined up. Inhale, hands up overhead. Exhale, swan dive, forward fold. Inhale to a halfway lift, either bringing the hands to the shins or to the upper thighs. If your hands are on your upper thighs, you want to squeeze your elbows towards each other. And then exhale, releasing down to the floor, forward fold. Let's come back, stepping back to a high plank, but we're going to modify this high plank by dropping the knees down. And then just lowering halfway down. It's too much stress on the shoulders to go down this low, so only going halfway down. And then just lifting up into an upward facing dog. And then lifting the hips to a downward facing dog. We'll take 3 breaths here in down dog. Letting your heels sink towards the mat. And then walking your feet to the top of the mat, coming back into that forward fold. Inhale to that halfway lift, and hands on shins or the upper thighs. Exhale, forward fold. And then rising all the way up, hands up overhead. And bringing the hands through heart center. And then releasing your hands to a mountain pose. Inhale, hands up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale to that halfway lift. Exhale, stepping back to a high plank. Again, option to drop to the knees and then lowering down just halfway. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, lifting the hips, rolling over the toes to downward facing dog. Taking a few breaths here in down dog. Gaze is between your feet, pressing all 10 fingers into the mat. Then walking your feet to the top of the mat, coming back into that forward fold. Inhale to that halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. From here, stepping back to that high plank, either dropping to the knees or option to keep the knees, the legs straight, and then lowering down just halfway. Inhale to an upward facing dog. Exhale, rolling over the toes to downward facing dog. Taking a few breaths here in down dog. Then walking the feet to the top of the mat, coming back into that forward fold. Inhale to that halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. On your next inhale, rising all the way up, reaching the hands up overhead. And then coming back into a mountain pose, hands down by the side. Bringing our hands to our hips. We're going to do some step backs. So we're going to take our left foot and just step it back as far as we can, keeping your hands on your hips. Back heel is high. Dropping the hands down by the side. Inhale, raising the hands up overhead. Coming into a Crescent Warrior pose. Then bringing your hands to heart center. On the exhale, we're going to twist just to the left. Staying with keeping that back heel up. And then coming back to center. Then take a nice inhale. On the exhale, we're going to twist to the right. Keeping the hands at heart center. Nice, easy, gentle twist. And then bringing the hands back, coming back to center, letting those hands come down. And we're just going to tilt forward, coming into airplane arms. And then letting those arms float back up to your Crescent Warrior. And then hands through heart center, coming back down to the mat, stepping back to a high plank. Again, option to drop to your knees, high plank, and then lowering down to a low plank. Inhale to an upward facing dog. Exhale, lifting the hips to downward facing dog. And then walking your feet to the top of the mat. Coming back into that forward fold. Inhale to that halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. And then on your next inhale, rising all the way up. I like to gather the earth energy and bring it all the way up through my body. And then bringing the hands back, heart center, and then hands to the hips. So we'll step back with the right foot. So stepping the right foot back, right heel is off the mat. Then dropping the hands down by the side. Inhale, reach the hands up overhead. Coming into a Crescent Warrior. Inhale. On the exhale, bringing your hands to heart center. Take a deep breath in. On the exhale, we're going to twist to our right. So just a gentle twist to our right. Keeping the back heel high. And then coming back to center. Take a nice deep breath in. On your exhale, twisting to your left. Pressing through the back heel as you twist. And breathe. And then coming back to center. Dropping the hands down by your side and leaning forward into that airplane hand pose. Feel the weight in the front foot. And then sweeping the arms forward. And when your biceps get to the level of your ears, then hinging the torso up. And sinking into the hips. Coming into that Crescent Warrior pose. And bringing the hands through heart center, back to the mat. Stepping back to high plank, and then dropping to your knees and sinking back into a child's pose. Reconnecting with your breath. Taking a few breaths here in child's pose. We'll take 2 more breaths. Inhale and exhale. Last one, inhale and exhale. On your next inhale, coming up onto all fours, tucking the toes under, lifting the hips to downward facing dog, and walking your feet to the top of the mat, coming into a forward fold. So we're going to take our peace sign fingers, grab our big toe on the inside with our thumb coming over top. It's called a Yogi Toe Lock. So I have my first two, my index finger and my middle finger on the inside of my big toe, my thumb's coming over top. Inhale, I'm going to extend. Exhale, folding forward as my elbows go out to the side and I pull up on my toes. Slight bend in the knees. And breathe. You may feel the breath in your belly pressing against your upper thighs. Then releasing the hands, lifting the feet and placing your palm as far back as you can underneath the foot so your toes come up to your ankle. You may need to bend your knees quite a bit here to do that. Coming into a gorilla pose. I like to wiggle my toes here to give my wrist a little massage to help counter all those down dogs. It puts a lot of stress on the wrist. Just taking a few breaths here. Then releasing the hands, taking your feet wide on the mat, and we're going to come down into a Yogi Squat. So several options here. If you have a block or handy, you can certainly sit on a block, bringing the hands to heart center. You may find that you need to keep your heels up off the mat. And if you are keeping your heels up off the mat, just means that those muscles need to stretch a little bit more. You can maintain either the hands on the mat or bringing your hands to heart center. But if you can get the heels all the way to the mat, bring your elbows on the inside of your knees and press your palms together in prayer position and work to bring the thumb knuckles to the center of the sternum and feel that opening across the inner thigh. Trying to sit nice and tall here. And we'll take a few breaths here. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. One more. Inhale and exhale, and then releasing the hands down to the mat. I'm going to lift the hips, coming back into that forward fold as you heel toe your feet towards each other. And then on the next inhale, rising all the way up, hands up overhead. And then returning to a mountain pose. Let's bring the hands back to the hips, stepping to the top of your mat. Let's reach that left foot back heel down. So I'm going to scooch my right foot a little forward. I want a 90-degree bend in the right knee. My back foot is down at about a 45-degree angle. And then I'm going to take my hips and sort of rotate them forward. They may not go all the way forward. And then releasing the hands, coming up into Warrior One. Taking a few breaths here in Warrior One. Turning your thumbs out and your little fingers in. Gaze can be straight ahead, or you can take your gaze up towards the ceiling. Bringing the hands back to heart center. And then twisting to the left. Setting up for a Warrior Two. Taking the right hand forward, the left hand back. Coming into a Warrior Two. We'll take a few breaths here. And there's always an option if your arms get really tired here in Warrior Two, you can very gracefully and mindfully release and mindfully come back in. And breathe. And flipping that front palm, reversing your warrior by reaching that right hand towards the ceiling. Taking a few breaths here. May feel a little burning in the thigh. If you're really feeling that thigh, you can release, straighten that right leg, and then come back in. Coming back into Warrior Two. And then we'll windmill our hands back to the mat. Stepping back to a high plank. Option to drop to the knees here, and then lowering just halfway down to a low plank. Inhale, upward facing. Exhale, rolling over the toes to downward facing dog. Inhale, that left leg lifts. We're going to step the left foot forward, so scooch it up there in between your hands. Going to turn that back heel down, and then rising up to Warrior One on the other side. Take a moment to settle into your warrior. Again, that back foot is at about a 45-degree angle. Your hip points are pointing forward, but it might take a while for them to rotate around. we're working towards bringing those hip points pointing forward. Thumbs out, little fingers in, gaze straight ahead. Or if it's okay with your neck, you can take your gaze towards the ceiling. And breathe. Nice, calm, even inhale and exhale with a slight constriction at the back of the throat so that you can hear your own breath. Then on your next inhale, bringing the hands to heart center. Take a deep breath in. And on the exhale, we're going to twist to the right, setting up for our warrior two. So now our hip points are facing out the right side of the mat. Taking that left hand forward, right hand back. Really reaching the left hand forward and reaching the right hand back as you let your hips sink perhaps another inch. Coming into a warrior two. Gaze is over that middle finger of the left hand. And again, if you need to release the shoulders, do so very mindfully. Same thing with that left leg. If you need a little release, you can slowly bend out and then come back in. Really listening to your body. And flipping that front palm, reversing the warrior, reaching that left hand towards the sky or ceiling. Right hand just drapes over the back leg. Gaze can be up at your hand or straight ahead. And then coming back to warrior two. Then windmill your hands back to the mat. Stepping back, high plank to low plank. Inhale, upward facing. Exhale, downward facing dog. We'll take a few breaths here in down dog. So now our down dog is turning into more of a resting posture. Before, in the beginning, it was quite an active posture. So bringing your feet together at the back of the mat, have your big toes touch. Coming forward to a high plank. Going to drop your right knee down. Take your right foot out to the side a little bit. Let the left foot turn down to the mat, and we're coming up into a side plank. Option to keep your left hand reaching towards the ceiling, or you can turn that palm forward and bring your bicep towards your left ear. And then taking the left hand back towards the ceiling, bringing the left hand down, coming back into that high plank. We're going to go right over to the other side. So feet together at the back of the mat. Going to drop that left knee down, kick that left foot out to the side as you bring the right heel down, and take that right hand up to the sky, the ceiling. And breathe. Your gaze could be down at the mat at your left hand, or you can take your gaze up towards your right thumb. Just see what's best for your neck. And then bringing that right hand down to the mat. And let's come back into that child's pose. Bringing the toes together and just letting the hips sink back as far as is comfortable in your body. Bring the hands forward, perhaps bringing the head down onto a block or the fist, and breathe. Just notice what's going on in your body. Coming back to the breath, really focusing on your breath. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the nose. On your next inhale, coming up onto all fours, we're going to do some cat and cow poses here. So setting your hands up right underneath your shoulders, knees right underneath the hips. Inhale, chin and tailbone lift. Exhale, rounding the back. Inhale, chin and tailbone lift. Exhale, rounding the back. Let's do 3 more. Inhale, chin and tailbone lift, letting the belly sink down. Exhale, rounding the back like an angry cat. Really pressing the middle of your back towards the sky or ceiling. Inhale, chin lifts, tailbone lifts. Exhale, rounding the back. Let's do 1 more. Inhale, chin and tailbone lift. Exhale, rounding the back. Then coming back to a neutral posture. We're going to tuck the toes under, lift the heels into a downward, lift the hips into a downward facing dog. And then walking our hands back to the back of the mat. So we're walking our hands back towards our feet. And then rolling up 1 vertebra at a time. Going to step into the middle of the mat, turn to face you as we move on to some balancing poses. So bringing your hands to your hips. Lifting your right heel as you feel the weight shift into your left foot. Bringing that right knee out front. Option to keep your hands right here on your hips or just dropping the hands down by your side, coming into a 1-legged mountain pose. Staying right here or bringing that right hand to the knee. Can we turn the left hand to the hip? Staying here or taking the right knee out to the right. Keeping the left hand on the hip or taking the left hand out to the side. Gaze can be straight ahead, or you can take your gaze over towards your left hand. And if you fall out, just come back in. Then bringing the knee back to center, both hands on the hips, straighten that right leg, and then floating back into an airplane pose. So we're floating that right leg back, palms are facing the mat, our shoulders are higher than our hips, and breathe. And then coming back, hands to the hips, bring that right knee out front, straighten it out, and then foot back to the mat. So we'll do all that on the other side. So hands on the hips, lifting the left heel, feel the weight shift into the right foot. Inhale, lifting that left knee, straightening that leg, and then bending it back, hands down by your side, coming into that 1-legged mountain pose. Again, option to stay right here in 1-legged mountain. It's quite a challenging pose. We're taking that left hand on the hip, on the knee, right hand on the hip, and taking that knee out to the left. Stay here, keeping your hand on your hip, gaze straight ahead, or take that right hand out to the side, and option to take your gaze over towards your right thumb. And then coming back to center, hands on the hips, and then releasing the hands and coming into If you fall out, like I just did, just come back in. Coming into an airplane pose. And then bringing the knee back out front, hands on the hips, straighten that front leg, and then foot to the mat. Bringing our feet together. We're going to bend into the knees. Drop the hands down by the side. Inhale, hands up overhead. This is called chair pose. We're going to bring the right arm underneath, left arm over top, and just grab opposite shoulder. There is an option here to bring your palms together. I'm just going to grab opposite shoulder today. Sinking into the hips. I'm going to lift my right leg up and over. Coming into an eagle pose. You can just leave that right foot where it is floating in the air. You can try to tuck it behind the calf, or you can reach down and let the toe touch. And breathe. And then on your next inhale, releasing the pose, bringing the foot to the mat, hands up overhead, bending back into the knees, reconnecting with that chair pose. Left arm comes underneath, right arm on top, grabbing opposite shoulder, and then lifting the left leg up and over. Again, you can bring that left toe down to the mat, or just really squeezing the thighs together. And breathe. Then on your next inhale, releasing the pose, reaching the hands up overhead, and returning to a mountain pose. So we'll do one more balancing pose, called tree pose. So bringing your hands to your hips, shift the weight into the left foot by raising the right heel, bringing your right foot either to your ankle, calf, or up above the knee to the upper thigh. Never want to put your foot right on your knee. So I'm going to just take the calf option today. I'm going to bring my hands to heart center. Standing tall. Several options with your hand position here. One option is to stay right here. Another option is to take your hands up overhead. Turn your thumbs out, little fingers in. Third option is more of an energetic option. Bringing the hands to heart center, letting that left hand point down, the right hand pointing up. And for me, this is connecting with the energy of Mother Earth coming up through the left side of my body, connecting with that archetypal feminine, masculine energy coming from above. And all that meeting in my heart center. And taking the right foot down, and we'll switch to the other side. So either taking the ankle, calf, or going to above the knee on the upper thigh. Your hand position can stay right heart center. You can reach your hands up overhead. The third option is to do the energetic para alignment pose here, where you're aligning masculine and feminine aspects of yourself. So here my masculine energy is penetrating down into the earth through my right foot. And if you fall out, come back in. And then returning the foot to the mat, Hands back to heart center and releasing, coming back into a mountain pose. Let's turn to face the top of our mat. Bringing our hands to our hips. We're going to step the left foot back, coming into a warrior one, opening to warrior two, and we're going to straighten that front leg. We're setting up for a triangle pose. So my back foot is flat to the mat at an angle. My right foot is flat to the mat, toes pointing straight ahead. And then I'm going to reach forward with my arms, hinging at the hips, reaching as far forward as I can, then just letting that right hand reach down towards the shin, ankle, wherever it reaches on the leg. I'm reaching that left hand towards the ceiling. And then let that left hand pull you back up. Bringing the hands to the hips, we're going to just reverse our toes. So I'm turning my right toes in and my left toes out. Setting up for a triangle on the other side. So both legs are straight. Really reaching the arms out and then reaching the left arm forward as far as I can go, and then just letting that left hand come down to the shin or ankle as I reach the right hand towards the sky. You can tell I've been practicing outside because I'm still clawing the ceiling of the sky. Taking a few breaths here. Then let that right hand pull you back up. Coming back, bringing the hands to the hips, turn the toes back the opposite direction and walking to the top of the mat. Inhale, hands up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Stepping back, placing the hands on the mat, stepping back to a high plank. We're going to hold our high plank here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then start to lower slowly all the way down to the mat. Letting the tops of your feet come onto the mat. Bringing your hands underneath your shoulders and then walking your hands back so they're about the middle of your rib cage. Want to get your wrists right underneath your elbows. Pressing the tops of your feet into the mat as your kneecaps lift. Inhale, chin and chest lift up off the mat. Coming into baby cobra pose. So this is all back muscles working here. Pressing your tops of your feet into the mat. Not a lot of pressure in your hands. And breathe. And then lowering the chin down to the mat. Taking your gaze to the right, hands down by your side. Big toes touch, heels fall apart, and just let it go. And then bringing the chin back to center. Hands down by your hips, turn the palms down. Pressing the tops of the feet into the mat, the kneecaps lift. Inhale, chin and chest lift up off the mat. Floating your hands up off the mat. And if it's okay with your low back, you can float the feet up off the mat. Coming into a locust pose. And breathe. Let's take 2 more breaths here. Inhale and exhale. And inhale. And exhale, lowering down, taking your gaze to the left. Big toes touch, heels fall apart, and just let it go. Just bring your hands back underneath your shoulders, coming up onto all fours. And we're going to walk our knees forward and have a seat on our mat and lay down on our backs, bending your knees, bringing your feet flat to the mat, reaching down and letting your fingertips just graze the back of your heels. Then releasing the hands out to the side a little bit. We're going to set up for a bridge pose. We're going to do 3 of these. So the first one, we're going to keep our hands right where they are, right on the mat, pressing down. Really press all 4 corners of your both feet into the mat as you inhale and lift the hips up off the mat. Being careful to keep your knees from splaying out to the side. You want to keep your knees, your hips, and your shoulders all in a straight line. Pressing the hips towards the ceiling. Taking a few breaths here. And then lowering the hips down. Taking a cycle of breath. Inhale and exhale. On the next one, we're going to inhale as we lift our hips. We're going to bring our hands together underneath and just interlace our knuckles. And then roll from one side to the other as you scoot your shoulder blades together. Really squeezing the shoulder blades together. So we're coming up on our shoulders. And then really lifting through the hips as you press your knuckles towards your heels. Coming into a bridge pose. And then releasing the shoulder blades, the hands, and rolling down one vertebra at a time, bringing the hips to the mat. And just notice when your sacrum touches the mat, feel that relaxation throughout the whole pelvis. So from this position, we have our palms down on the mat. We're going to raise the right foot towards the ceiling. Turning the right toes out, bring that right ankle behind your left knee. Take your right hand and press your right knee away. Coming into sometimes called a figure 4 pose or reclining pigeon pose. Option to stay right here. If you're really feeling this in your right hip, just stay right here and press your right hand into your right knee. Or you can lift that left foot off the mat and interlace your hands behind your left hamstring and pull that left thigh into your chest as you just press the right knee away. And feel this stretch in your right hip. And taking a few breaths here. I'm going to have your head and shoulders on the mat. If you're struggling to keep your head on the mat, you could place a block or towel or something underneath your head to support your neck. And then lowering that left foot down to the mat. Bringing that right foot back down. Inhale, taking the left foot to the sky. There's the sky again. Turning the left toes out and then bringing that ankle right on top of the right knee. Taking your left hand and pressing that left knee away. Again, option to stay right here if you're really feeling this in your left hip. You want to keep your left ankle, your left foot flexed. That helps protect your your knee joint. Second option is to lift that right foot off the mat and take your hands and interlace them behind your right hamstring as you pull that right thigh in towards the chest. And we're working to press that left knee away. Again, feeling that opening in the left hip, keeping both feet flexed. And breathe. Then lowering that right foot to the mat, bringing the left foot back to the mat. Straightening the legs, bringing the heels to the mat, and reaching the hands up overhead, placing your thumbs down so that your thumbs can reach the mat or floor behind you. Feel that stretch from fingertip to the heels. And then we're going to bring the right knee in and give the right knee a good hug. Keeping your left hand on your knee, we're going to set up for a spinal twist here. So taking your right hand out to the side, and then guiding your right knee over to the left. You may need to lift your hips up as that knee comes over to the left side of your mat. Keep your head and shoulders on the mat, flexing both feet. Just relaxing into the pose here. Option to take your gaze over towards your right hand. Take 2 more breaths here. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. And then coming back to center, giving that knee one more hug. And pulling the left knee in, giving both knees a hug. And then straightening out the right leg. Giving that left knee a good hug. And then taking the left hand out to the side and guiding the knee, left knee over to the right, coming into a spinal twist on this side. Just go as far as is comfortable in your body. Okay, your body is your greatest teacher. So listen. And breathe. And coming back to center, giving that left knee a hug. Let's bring the right knee up, give that a hug. And lifting your head and bringing your forehead towards your knees, perhaps reaching down, grabbing your ankle or feet, and just curling up into a ball, sometimes called rabbit pose. And then releasing into our final pose, Savasana. So taking your feet wide on the mat, hands down by your side, palms facing the ceiling. And just closing your eyes if you like. We'll spend a few minutes here in Savasana. Sending gratitude to your body for your practice. letting go of the breath, just breathing normally. Just feeling the weight of gravity on the front of your body. And feel the earth supporting you. And rest here in silence for a few moments. Slowly starting to come back. Bring some motion into your fingers and your toes. Bending one knee and then the other, bringing your feet flat to the mat. And rolling onto your right side. Perhaps supporting your head with your bicep. And then finding your way to a comfortable seated position on your mat. Bringing your hands to heart center. Closing your eyes or gazing at your fingertips. May our consciousness and our behavior be of service to all beings in all worlds, liberating all into the suchness of this and every moment. We'll end our practice with the word namaste. Namaste means when I am in that place in me where the whole universe resides, and you are in that place in you, we are one. Inhale, bringing our thumb knuckles to the center of our forehead, and then exhaling as we say, namaste. Thank you, brothers, for sharing that practice with me. If you're interested in learning more about yoga, you can contact the Illumina Pennsylvania website at illuminapa.com. where we have some links to some yoga practices. And if you're interested in joining a live Zoom yoga practice, there's a few of us men who are gathering several times a week to do a 60-minute yoga practice. All levels are welcome. Send an email to illuminpa@gmail.com, and we can get you on our text notification list when we're doing our practice. So enjoy the rest of Solarize 2020, and thank you for sharing this practice.